Why Islam should be reclassified. In this essay, I will present background facts as to why it is advisable as public policy to reclassify Islam in law from a religion proper instead to a political ideology, thereby losing constitutional protections accorded mere religions. In what follows, the references I will not read off the screen. You can read that off the screen yourself. It is a duty of Muslims following their Prophet to demand submission to their God without any need of authentication. One Islamic myth is that Islam alone is the original and complete Abrahamic religion, and that Christianity and Judaism are perversions of Islam. This is a fiction. As shown by W. St. Clair Tisdall and other scholars from the 19th century to the present, Muhammad actually borrowed many concepts and narratives from Judaism, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, and the surrounding paganism, and wove them into what is now the Quran. So what Muhammad did not make up, he borrowed. And some of his borrowings were in fact inaccurate. In Islamic theology, human governments and democracy are illegitimate. The only legitimate government in Islamic theology is one that is based on Sharia law. Sharia law is unsuited to modern society. It is antiquated, incomplete, and barbaric. Many examples could be given: death for apostasy, amputations for theft, child marriage, honor killings, imperialistic warfare, pillage of peoples, destruction of civilizations, imprisonment of women under very limiting rules, authorized wife beating, murder, enslavement of women and children in war, making captive women's sex slaves, stealing and training mere boys to fight wars in the service of jihad, that is, janissaries, subjugation of peoples, death for refusal to engage in jihad, death for homosexuality, stoning for adultery, a supremacist doctrine which treats the rest of humanity as less than human. That Islam intends to impose Sharia law under wherever it goes should be sufficient to disqualify it from constitutional protections of a religion. Islamophobia is a word which was designed to intimidate. It is a tool of tyranny. Peace in Islamic theology just means the absence of dissent. That is just tyranny. Freedom in Islamic theology just means freed from human governments, usurpers as they call them, and replacement with Sharia law. Every obedient Muslim who lives under a secular government has a duty to work for the eventual overthrow of that government. All faithful Muslims, the Ummah, are committed to the worldwide political domination of Islam. Jihad is the method. A faithful Muslim is loyal to Islam as nation above loyalty to his country. This is evidence that Islam is a political movement as much as religion. If Islam were only a religion, the Muslim would not have to choose his loyalty because religion and country would be on different planes. If a Muslim says, "I am loyal to my country and my religion," he is either a moderate or nominal Muslim or is engaging in taqiyya, deception. If a Muslim is loyal to Sharia, he cannot hold loyalty to both his country and his religion because Islam is a nation as well as a religion. This is what is meant by the Ummah. Westerners usually cannot see this. The aim of Islam is to bring about a worldwide Islamic theocracy under Sharia law. Sharia law regulates every aspect of a Muslim's life. Under Sharia law, most aspects of freedom, typically enjoyed by Westerners, would be snuffed out. It is the aim of Islam to wage civilization jihad until it can replace the U.S. Constitution and laws with Sharia law. Muslims are commanded in the Quran and in Islamic doctrine to use force, subversion, and deception, taqiyya, when necessary to bring about the domination of Islam. In other words, the level of violence exercised in the course of jihad is context sensitive. Historically and at present, when waging jihad, Muslims are taught to give the mushrikun, that is, idolaters, polytheists, and atheists, just two choices: conversion to Islam or death. People of the book, that is, Christians, Jews, Zoroastrians, have a third option: dhimmitude, subjugation. Dhimmis must pay a periodic tribute called the jizya. Dhimmis are made to suffer systematic humiliation, powerlessness, and fear. Islam is actively terrorizing, intimidating, and manipulating Europe into a state of dhimmitude, that is, subjugation. Canada, Australia, and the US are only about one generation behind Europe in the process of civilization jihad. The leaders of Western Europe have allowed the European Union to be intimidated by the Organization of the Islamic Conference, the OIC, and its associated groups to hand over the national sovereignty of European states. This has resulted in the flood of refugees, and quote, refugees, unquote, and the installation of cultural conduits for the replacement of Europe with Eurabia. This is not an accident. A careful reading of the position papers drafted by transnational consultation groups reveals the intent of the OIC and associated bodies. These papers reveal the same intent for Europe that the Muslim Brotherhood's memorandum did in the Holy Land Foundation trial in the United States. Islam has successfully intimidated Europe to withdraw support from and to demonize and isolate Israel. Israel is a beacon of light in the Middle East. It is the only true democracy in that part of the world. Israel occupies lands which were its homeland from at least the second millennium BC. After the Holocaust, at very least, the world owes it to Israel to live in peace in its historic lands. Islam's hatred of Israel comes from Muhammad's dehumanizing of the Jews. Muhammad murdered the entire Qurayza tribe of Jews during one of his conquests, beheading about 800 men after a 25-day siege. Why did Muhammad dehumanize the Jews with his dehumanizing labels, as we can see in the Quran? In Quran 5.60, he seems to do it for no other reason than that the Jews did not accept his claim to be the prophet. The entire 1400-year history of Islam is the history of jihad against the world. It has included murder of approximately 270 million, rape, pillage, genocide, destruction of civilizations, enslavement, child theft, and tyranny. Presently, we see an epidemic of gang rapes of indigenous women in Western Europe. Presently, we see epidemic of violence on isolated indigenous persons, especially within no-go zones. No-go zones are de facto districts dominated by Muslims, in which indigenous people can expect to be attacked. Even the police are afraid to enter no-go zones, so they become, in effect, zones of sedition within the target country. Islam teaches that it is its duty to free people from human governments. Therefore, Muslims who are obedient to their scriptures have no intention of being assimilated. Although there are moderate Muslims, they are technically regarded in Islamic doctrine as apostates. They have the luxury of being moderate only in a kuffar, that is, infidel nation. But in Islamic doctrine, apostates are to be killed. As civilization jihad progresses, as the target nation becomes more Islamized, moderate Muslims can be expected to become more radicalized to avoid being accused of apostasy and executed. Every faithful Muslim is required to contribute to zakat, which is a tax, a fixed percentage of which goes to support jihad. The penalty for leaving Islam is death. Muslim men are allowed to have up to 4 wives. Muslim men are authorized to slap around an errant wife to discipline her. Though he may not break her bones or hit her in the face, it is degrading treatment, and it is emotional abuse, and is fully sanctioned by Islamic scriptures. Muslim wives are expected to be willing to have sex with their husbands on demand. Withholding sex is grounds for corporal punishment. There is no reciprocal requirement on the husband. Muslim women are required to wear a hijab or burqa. They are not allowed to leave the house without their husband's permission. Their inheritance is half that of a brother. Their testimony carries only half the weight of a man. A Muslim man may marry a non-Muslim woman, but a Muslim woman may not marry a non-Muslim man. A Muslim man may marry a very young girl, even a baby girl, with the permission of her father, though he may not have sex with her until she is 9. This is because Muhammad, the perfect man and role model for Muslims, consummated his marriage to Aisha when she was 9. If a daughter is unwilling to submit to Sharia regulations enforced by her father, including her arranged child marriage, or if she acts too westernized, she can be killed by her family. This is called honor killing. It is regularly practiced under Islam. Another Islamic myth is that Western culture and science originated from Islamic culture. This myth is being forced on European educational institutions and media by Islamic dialogue groups working in conjunction with representatives from the European Union. Islam is trying to establish centers of Islamic studies in all the major universities of the West and to make Arabic the lingua franca of Europe and to create centers of Islamic propaganda. Islam is a religion like communism and Nazism were religions. The analogy is valid because all three are supremacist political ideologies, all three have a metaphysical underpinning, all three are tyrannies. In all three, the violent political behavior is justified by a sense of justice. In the UK, Muslims can go to Sharia courts to settle legal disputes. In this, the government of the UK has relinquished its duty to provide equal protection under a single law of the land. In Islamic doctrine, there is no assurance of entering into paradise except under one condition. If you engage in jihad and are killed, you are guaranteed paradise. In Islamic theology, jihadists are taught that in martyrdom, they will be eternally serviced by 72 perpetual virgins called Uris, and you will be able to intercede for 70 of your relatives. So, although Islam denies that Jesus, that is Islam's Isa, really died on the cross and couldn't have been the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, a suicide bomber can atone for the sins of 70 of his relatives. Could it be that Islam has borrowed the Christian doctrine of atonement? Jihadists often force children to strap bombs to themselves and go into a public place to kill targets. They tell these children that they will go to paradise. Islamic theocracy is antithetical to liberal democracy. Part of the reason why Islam is making such inroads into the West is because the West has become post-Christian, materialistic, postmodern, and multicultural. The West has lost its vision and belief in freedom and democracy. The phrase violent extremism was a propaganda invention meant to distract the unsuspecting from seeing that Islam might be the source. American law and the current interpretation of the Constitution treats Islam as a mere religion. Islamic actors are using constitutional protections under religion as a cover for waging political subversion. A sign to you that Islam wants to overthrow our laws and Constitution will be its attempt to override the First Amendment with their blasphemy laws. Once we are deprived of the force of the First Amendment, we are well on the way to tyranny. To protect this country, we must stop viewing Islam as just another religion and must reclassify Islam in law instead as a political movement which uses religious language.